I was very stressed. We were literally like in the last month, we were doing exterior siding and interior trim work and things. And I had letters coming in from just random people saying, hey, we see you're renovating, we'll purchase this home from you. And I started seriously considering and trying to run numbers. Maybe I should just get out of this thing right now. I don't know if I can see it to the end.
Welcome to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association, providing benefits and services to real estate investors and rental property owners for over 48 years. With your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group.
This episode is sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And RCB & Associates, helping real estate investors and small business owners navigate the complex world of health insurance and Medicare benefits at rcbassociatesllc.com. Hello and welcome to episode 275. When you're beginning down the real estate investing path, one of the first things you have to decide is whether you're going to go it alone or bring in a partner. Today, we're going to talk with two talented investors who decided to combine their strengths in order to encounter the ups and downs of rental rehab together. Mark Royce is a retired Navy Civil Engineer Corps officer who served 20 years in over a dozen locations around the world. He's also been involved in commercial construction and software development. Katie Lovley is a real estate professional with Bradley Company, specializing in commercial real estate and residential rentals. Together, Mark and Katie have created WSB Properties right here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where they purchased their first dilapidated property in 2018 and have since developed a portfolio of rental units using creative financing and a lot of sweat equity. Mark and Katie, welcome to the show.
Hi there.
Thanks.
Let's get to know both of you just a little bit better. Katie, why don't we start with you? Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you started investing in real estate.
Well, I started with X Ventures Commercial Real Estate in Grand Rapids. And around that time, I met Mark while working at the Garage Bar. And we became close friends, started traveling together and doing other things together. And we had an idea to get into some rentals. We found a few. The first one was completely gutted, and we were a little nervous to get started, but we just decided to go for it.
Awesome. Great way to bring us to how you guys met. Mark, fill us in a little bit about yourself, because you have quite a history background as well.
Sure. So I'm West Michigan native, grew up just south of Grand Rapids. Right out of high school, left for the Navy. Spent 20 years, received a commission. I did facilities management, construction management for the Navy, and mostly overseas around the world. But wanted to come back home to West Michigan. There's no doubt in my mind, Grand Rapids was my home. So did my 20 years, came back, went right into commercial construction because that just was a natural transition, and did that for about 13 years. But kind of got burned out a little bit. And so I got out of that business. And then I kind of found myself, well, what do I do next? What's really going to be the thing for me? Took a summer off to try to just figure that out. That was about the time that Katie and I really started brainstorming on the idea that maybe we could get into this redevelopment of some residential and start doing rentals, because kind of had been a lifelong dream of mine to work in residential construction, just had never had the opportunity. So with the time, it just seemed like it made sense.
I know partnerships get formed in many different ways, but I'm really curious, like, how did you guys both realize you had an interest in real estate investing? And what made you think, well, I should team up with Mark, or Mark, you teaming up with Katie? What made you think that was a good idea?
I think part of it was Katie was pursuing her residential real estate license, and I knew that was a big element of what I needed to be doing. I had no interest in dealing with real estate from that aspect, but it seemed to make sense. And she is young, energetic, had accomplished quite a bit professionally and through her education. And she actually, I think part of the conversation initially, she was talking about leaving the area. And I said, that's a terrible idea. You should stay in West Michigan. There's plenty to do here. And so I can't recall an exact conversation where we got into the idea that we should go into partnership and work on this, but it just kind of evolved through I think through that summer of 2018, just talking about what I was going to do next, and she wanted to be involved.
Mm-hmm.
So Katie, take us through that summer of 2018. Were you going to go ahead and start rehabbing properties on your own anyway? And then you thought Mark would be a great partner? Or did he somehow bring a piece that made you say, wait a minute, the two of us could do this together?
Well, Mark had the capital, or at least some of it, in which I did not have any to put into a project, but I have the real estate background, the contacts for certain contractors. So does he, but he has more of the technical knowledge on how to do the building and the renovations. And he's been teaching me along the way. And I could do the property management aspect of getting the tenants, because I have a pretty wide range of contacts in the area. So it was just kind of a good fit. And we kept talking, and it just kind of fell into place that we were able to find a spot to start, and it worked out.
And take us through the first deal. Like, how did that come about? Who found it? And how did you guys decide to go for it?
We looked for a few months, actually, but not as seriously. I was doing I actually was on a cycling trip across the country, I think, when we started this. But she was finding things, and I'm like, let's go for it. Let's find an offer or put in an offer. We chased a few. Really, we're just not finding what we wanted. And I think it was... it
was one of my colleagues from X Ventures, and she referred us to her son that's been doing residential real estate for a very long time. And he had one in mind that wasn't listed, but had been in contact with the owner. And he mentioned that it might be a good one, and we ran with it.
Yeah, so. It was a for sale by owner. We went and looked at it. Scared me to death, honestly, to look at it. It was a duplex that had sat vacant, I don't know, 30 years maybe. Mm-hmm. Had been gutted down to the studs. I mean, it looked like a couple of people it had changed hands a few times since people had started to do some stuff, but it just didn't look good. So we talked about it. The price was affordable because it was within the amount of cash I had available. So that was a big part of it. And Katie convinced me that you can do this. This will be easy. I'm like, all right, well, I got nothing else going on. I might as well jump in.
Well, tell us a little bit about the property. What did you pay for it? And what did you do to it once you acquired it?
It had sat vacant. It's a 2-story duplex. It had been gutted down to studs. I think it was listed for 80, or the owner wanted 85. We ended up paying 80,000 for it. And then
we had to put in about 100.
Yeah, we put almost $100,000 in because it was a complete renovate. I mean, I had a very good friend from when I was working commercial construction who's an architect, and she had since transitioned into doing some independent residential design. So I brought her up and walked her through what we had thought we needed to do. So she went and put together a design for us, or kind of confirmed our ideas on design, helped us find a structural engineer because the place needed some structural reinforcement as well. And then it was just a matter of, it was kind of a mess. It actually had some flooding problems. And so we just started tackling it from the basement up, honestly. There were some things we could do, just start cleaning up while we waited for permits to go through. Once the permits went through, we went to town, and it was 7 days a week for me.
Mine was
12-hour days.
all nights and weekends. Yeah.
And so, I mean, we contracted out some things that were beyond my either capability or desire to do, the plumbing and electrical, because there was no services of either. So they both were full new services. HVAC, made some good connections through that. And everything else was we just did. We just went
knocked
to
it out.
Katie, were you right alongside Mark working on it this whole time, or how did you split that labor?
Most of the time when I was not working at my other jobs, I was at the duplex, nights and weekends. I think I did 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. most days. And then weekends, I would get there at 10 or 11, and we would spend as much time as we needed there. I don't really remember how we split the labor for the partnership, but it all went into that.
Right.
So it sounds like aside from like the electrician and maybe the plumber, you guys were doing all the work. Did you bring in a crew or anybody?
Nope.
So it was just you guys. What did you find? And Katie, I'll start with you. What did you find to be the most difficult part of that?
I had Mark telling me how to do everything, and if I didn't get it, he would teach me along the way. I think the hardest part, specifically with that property, were just the time that we had to put into it and how exhausted we both were for trying to get it done. We were working kind of against the clock because Mark.
Why were you working against the clock? What was the...
Well, so it had a little bit to do with the financing side.
Mm-hmm.
As we got this kicked off, I talked to a group of very close friends and had commitments to come in with the cash needed for the renovation. I had basically 25% of what was needed, and the other 75% was supposed to be split among 3 friends. 2 backed out. 1 came forward, but at a smaller amount. And so it's like, well, where am I going to get the cash to do this? And tried a lot of different avenues and just basically just extended my credit in order to finish this project. So I needed to get it done so I could refinance, pay off those short-term loans in order to, and then start getting some rental income in.
Okay. So financially, you really went out on a limb to make this happen.
Yeah, very much so. I was very stressed. And honestly, when we were literally like in the last month, I think we're doing exterior siding and interior like trim work and things. And I had letters coming in from just random people saying, hey, we see you're renovating, we'll purchase this home from you. And I started seriously considering and trying to run numbers. Maybe I should just get out of this thing right now. I don't know if I can see it to the end. So glad I did. But
what were some of those offers that were coming in?
Lower than I wanted.
Yeah, they weren't smart. It would have covered my costs, but not really what it was.
They would have bailed you out, but you would have had all this time and got nothing out of it.
Right.
So it sounds like, Mark, that the 3 investors who sort of backed out were going to bring in about $75,000.
Right.
Was that a loan? Were they going to be a partnership? Were they actually going to come in and work with you guys? Or was it more of a passive investment for them?
Yeah, passive investment. And the way we set it up, because the one friend did come in and he invested and he became a partner. So we formed an LLC with the property at the end. And based on his amount of investment compared to other investment, he gets a share, area shares based on that. And so we do monthly distributions when we receive rent after paying expenses.
So other than the financial part and the ticking financial clock, what did you find to be the most difficult part of the process?
Specific to the work, the structural work on it, not knowing, see, there's a ton of obviously framing you do, and reframing I had to do on this old house because it's built in 1900, and to bring it up to kind of current code, because this was considered a full rehab, so it had to come up to current standards, and I wasn't sure how the inspector was going to look at it. There's no interim inspections you receive, and so you're really pushing all the way through until he comes in. So I had no idea what to expect. It went way better than expected. Inspectors were great in the city. The gentleman I worked with, he was impressed. He said, I want to come back. I want to see the future. I want to see what you're doing with this. I love the work you're doing. He was very happy that we weren't just taking any shortcuts. We really put our time and effort into it. I took it as a learning experience because I had done renovation on homes before that I'd owned over the course of my life, but I'd never gone in and done a full major remodel like this.
And while the 2 of you were working together on this, how did that go? You guys didn't just enter a partnership. You entered a very intense partnership where like you're spending all of your free time, nights, weekends, working together in this house. What were some of the stumbling blocks you guys might have had, and what were some of the, what were some of the surprises you found in working together?
There were some burnout times, I think, where the work just got overwhelming, and so we'd sometimes show up to work, but then not realize, like, let's just go get dinner instead, or let's go have a drink. I just can't do it tonight. And so
there were quite a few of those.
Yeah,
days.
it's like, so it's keeping focus and just keeping moving forward, keeping the momentum. It was tough. I mean, because we started the work in, I think, September. And so, in January, February, it's
It was
like
cold.
it was cold, and it's
Yep.
we didn't have heat. I think we started getting heat in the house in January, end of January, but we didn't have it insulated yet because we hadn't had framing inspections done. It was just cold. It was just miserable. Yeah, and we're cutting holes in it to replace the windows and bring current windows with egress, and yeah, it was just it was a tough winter.
So if you had not partnered on this and each of you were working alone, like separately alone on this type of project, would it have gone a lot harder because you didn't have each other there to motivate each other, or would it have gone smoother for some reason?
I just don't think it could have been done without the partnership. My time put in, him having extra hands to cut things and ideas to how to design the place and the colors to pick and those type of things. We worked together on a lot of that, and I could not have done something like this on my own. I had no technical knowledge on how to do any of it. So I think it was definitely needed to have at least the 2-person crew.
Yeah. Katie, since you're obviously the one who had less experience in this field, do you feel that going through this process with Mark, it gives you confidence that if you did have to do this type of project on your own, you'd be able to do that at this point?
I've thought about this often, and I think I would still need some guidance from someone. Currently doing some remodels on my household, and I've told Mark that he's got to let me at least try to do it all on my own. But he does help a lot. So I can do a lot of things, but it's still a learning process on making sure I actually know how to do them.
What was the ultimate outcome of this first project, this duplex or 2-unit that you guys worked on together? Did you finish it? I believe you did, but tell us how you finished it and financially how that worked out for you, and is it still in your portfolio?
Yes, we did finish it. We finished on it was that last day in June 2019. We had the tenants. I was going to occupy the first floor unit as my personal residence. So we just were going to rent out the upstairs unit. We had final inspections and tenants moving in within 3 hours of each other. Inspections went great though. We got our certificate of occupancy. Yep. And tenants moved in. It was quite a relief. And when we ran the numbers in the end, quite honestly, it turned out probably better than we could have thought. I would say in terms of like our return on investment from an equity standpoint, when we had it appraised, probably about only a 10% growth, and that was over 9 months of construction, so not awesome. But on a rental return, we're getting 12% on investment. So so all in all, that first year, 22% return, and then a continuous 12% plus the appraised value of the property continues to go up.
That's great. And did you put permanent 30-year financing on it, or how did you?
We did. Yes. Yeah.
And were you able to pull out quite a bit of your initial cash investment?
Enough to pay everything off and have a solid down payment for our next project.
I'd like to take a moment to tell you about Green Property Management. Not only do they manage everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area, they also manage my entire portfolio. So I can tell you from personal experience that their unique flat fee management style is worth a closer look. If you feel that your property isn't operating to its fullest potential, then Green Property Management can help you take a holistic approach that will save you money, eliminate your headaches, and increase your net income. And if you're a property manager interested in applying Green Property Management's model, give them a call at 1-866-95-GREEN or visit them on the web at greenpropertymgt.com.
If you're thinking of leaving your W-2 job and becoming a full-time real estate investor, one of the greatest costs you must consider is healthcare for you and your family. When I made this transition myself, I found the whole healthcare insurance process to be confusing and frustrating. That's why I'm glad I met Chad Creasy at RCB & Associates. Chad is a professional health insurance agent who helps real estate investors and small business owners understand and choose their best healthcare options. And best of all, his services are covered by the the insurance company and won't cost you a dime. If you live in Michigan and are expecting a change in your healthcare insurance coverage for any reason, or losing employer coverage or transitioning into Medicare, then you owe it to yourself to contact Chad Creasy at rcbassociatesllc.com. So let's talk about that next project then. So you had a solid down payment for that. How soon during or after this first project did you begin pursuing your second project?
We took a break, took a trip to celebrate. But then honestly, we started looking.
Maybe like 3 months.
Yeah.
And then it took us about 3 months to find one and lock one down.
Yeah, it was December of that year, November, December of that year that we found the next one and finally made the purchase.
Tell us a little bit about that. Tell us about that second project.
Just weren't finding exactly what we wanted. And then we did. And we were targeting the west side, the near west side. So that's where the first one was. And
so the first one was on the west side of Grand Rapids, which is over by Grand Valley State University.
North of Bridge. With all the development on Bridge, we wanted to be close to that. We thought that was a good corridor to make an investment.
Yeah.
And then so we found another one over on the west side. That was a single family home. It was a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, but as soon as we walked through, we're like, "Oh, that's easy. This could be a 4-bedroom, 2-bath." It was solid. Structurally, it was very solid. So there were some interior things we needed to do, and definitely needed to be modernized. But it didn't seem as big of an undertaking. And then, surprisingly, based on the success of our first one, we had no problem finding people that were willing to invest in the second one. They saw the numbers and the success on that, and we had way more than we needed for that project.
So you were able to bring in investors and not put all of your money out on the line.
Right. I bought the home. I took out a mortgage to buy the home using the down payment. It was just under $100,000 purchase, and this was just under $40,000 in renovation. And so we were able to raise all of that renovation money through investors. Ended up not borrowing it or using it all. But again, the same arrangement. We finished. And based on the share of their investment, we formed another LLC for that property, and they remain partners in that specific property.
And what was that process like? That $40,000 worth of rehab? Was it again the two of you working nights and weekends to get it done?
Yes, and so during the course of the renovation, a few months into it, by the time we had rehabbed a bathroom and just a kitchen. We wanted to get the kitchen up and running because that was a total gut, and we wanted to redo the kitchen. I actually moved in to the property so we could rent out the other half of the duplex because rental income was much better than, the income would look much more attractive than, living in a semi-renovated home. But this one went quick. We were done. We were going to be done in the spring of 2020, and COVID kind of took its toll, I think. I don't know why it slowed us down. We should have had more free time, but.
What were some of the lessons you learned on the first rehab that you were able to apply to the second one that made it go faster?
We learned tons. I mean, it's like, where do you begin on stuff like that?
Yeah.
Getting material. We put together a very extensive list of everything we were going to need. So our budgeting was much closer because I think our initial budget on the duplex, my cost estimating, and I never was a cost estimator, but it was closer to 80 and we spent closer to 100. So I was off. So I wanted to be much closer on this one. I think I had budgeted 35 and we spent 37. So we were much closer, I felt. But I think what we did is we put together a large list and we made a bulk purchase up front to get some bulk discounts on costs as well. So that helped out. And then so it wasn't a constant run to the store every day to get materials. We just had stuff on site so we could kind of pick what we wanted to work on for the day and keep moving through it like that.
Yeah, I'd imagine that would take a lot of time having to run back and forth to the store all the time. So you bought in bulk,
right,
on the second time around in order to avoid those extra trips.
Right.
Why were you almost 25% over on your first project? What did you miss as far as budgeting for?
There were a lot of surprises in that one. Which, first project, of course, it would be a lot of surprises.
Again, I think back to the structural, we had to basically rebuild the house from the inside out. It just took a lot more lumber than I had anticipated. And lumber costs went up during that time too. I think my electrical budget was off. I didn't seek multiple bids on electrical. I went with a trusted friend that owned a commercial company actually out of Kalamazoo, but his good friend, and I'd worked with them in the commercial world. They had a residential division. They came in. They were a little bit more expensive. Plumbing, I'm trying to think. I think they were close to budget. They just took a long time. So it wasn't working on my schedule. HVAC was okay. I think we stayed okay on that cost. So I think, it was framing, electrical, and then just a lot of the little stuff that I just didn't think about, the finishes stuff when it comes down to the end to make it a completely habitable space.
Like faucets, doorknobs, things like that.
Right. Doorknobs, door hardware, door trim, so much trim. I think there was 22 or 24 doors in this place, between two units. It's like, wow. Painting doors and painting trim was like, it's a
endless.
It seemed to go on forever.
Mm-hmm.
So how did the second project work out then? Take us through completion. Where did you end up?
So we finished that one in June of last year.
Mm-hmm.
Had renters moving in immediately. I built a pro forma for each project, and I had a range of what we thought we'd get for rent. Turns out we got just above what I had anticipated was a top tier rent.
It was a 3-1, and were you able to turn it into a 4-2?
We did a 4-2, right?
And what kind of rent did you project, and what did you end up with?
So I was thinking, I think 12 to 1,400 a month, and we got 1,450 starting on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
So, and I think we could have gone much higher, quite honestly, seeing what the rental rates are now in town.
Yeah, well, yeah, for a 4-2 over on the west side,
but no off-street parking. So that was the tough part on that one.
Parking, okay.
There's not much of a yard and there's no driveway.
Right.
Very small parcel of land, but large house, large bedrooms. I think one of them was a little small, but we got 4 college students that liked that price point and works out.
So are you renting out by the room, or did you rent out the entire
whole
thing?
house? The whole house. Yeah.
And then projection wise, it came in within budget. I think you said you were about maybe less than 10% off.
Right. Yeah. Maybe 3 to 5% off. We made about an 8%, or we're making about an 8% return on the rental income. But the beauty on that one is when we finished it, 6 months, had it appraised, over a 25% increase in the appraised value for our investment. So there's a great return on investment from the appraisal. Had it been done as a flip, we would have done quite well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're appraising this before, because you got a loan on it when you bought it, and then you had it reappraised when you refinanced it.
Right.
When they first appraised it, did they just appraise it based on its current condition, or did they give you an after repair value appraisal?
So I had an appraisal just done on current condition to get a mortgage to purchase the property. And so then when it was done, I had it then, after I had a second appraisal done at the end to do a refinance to pull equity out.
So according to those appraisals, you added about 25% in value to it.
No. I'm saying 25% return on our equity. So basically it was appraised originally at 100,000 100,000. We put in 37 and it came back at 190,000. So
that's the kind of increase in appraised value that you definitely want to see.
Yeah, about a $60,000 increase in,
Mm-hmm.
So
great. And then Katie, are you responsible for finding the tenants and leasing it out and that type of thing?
Yes, I do most of that. And Facebook Marketplace has been probably the most luck we've had. We also use pages for the college students, the GVSU pages where people are looking for housing. And we get a lot of interest on all of our properties, usually from young professionals or college students. And the tenants that we do have are very respectful, responsible. It's been working out very well.
Mm-hmm.
And since these are relatively new properties after you completely rehabbed them, are you getting calls about repairs yet?
Not a lot of them. We had one stove range that somehow was leaking gas, so we had to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
And that took a few trips, just changing lock codes sometimes, and pretty easy. So
you did the 2-unit, you did the single family.
Mm-hmm.
What's next?
So we just finished another kind of an oddball project in terms of the traditional way to go about this. It was a request of the neighbor of our first project. And actually, through the course of years, he had actually owned that home at one time. Didn't do anything with it, but he had owned it.
Mhm.
He lives next door in a duplex. Hadn't done anything or wasn't renting out his upstairs apartment. He really pushed us. He said, I'd like you to do the whole house, but start with the upstairs apartment." So we struck a deal with him that we would make the total investment to renovate the upstairs apartment, and we would serve as property manager. And then in return, we wanted to pull out of the rent a return on our investment through interest, and then we'd also have then a share in equity in the total home based on the a difference in appraised value. So
Mhm.
it was a quick hit. Took us about 90 days, I think, to finish, but it gave us a project to do while we're pursuing another project.
Yeah.
So
And the housing market's pretty hard to find another project right now.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it's slim pickings, isn't it?
yep.
yeah.
Yes, it is.
It's interesting with that homeowner who wanted you to help him rehab his units, that you were able to almost, basically create a partnership with him.
Right. Right.
Did you create a new, how did you do that? Because he's the homeowner. His name was likely on the deed, I would imagine. Did you create a new partnership where you moved it into an LLC so that you guys have a call on the deed as well? Or how exactly did you do that?
No, we basically signed a contract with him that kind of outlined the terms of this. We then filed a lien on the home, so we have at least some type of a legal claim to it. But that's kind of it's just a it's more than a handshake agreement because it's in writing, but we're not technically on the lien, and we didn't form a specific business partnership with him. And honestly, the only reason we didn't is I wasn't sure how to. We thought about what that would look like, and he would kind of be the majority shareholder in that. And we don't necessarily need that type of an arrangement. So we did form an LLC that is just managing the property and receiving the rent and distributing the rent. And so just so there's some type of a legal separation from us personally.
We also did put in a first right of refusal. So if anything happens to the homeowner, we have the first option to buy it.
Right.
Our goal so that we could have two properties right next to each other.
Right.
That's nice. So you've kind of tied it up in several ways. How's that working out then? Is that leased up pretty easily?
Yeah, absolutely. We had that one again the day that we finished. We had a tenant. We had an overwhelming response when we advertised that one. Like overwhelmingly, we had to stop showings because like after booking 10,
Yeah.
it's like we'll find
One
someone
of them
else.
is going to work. Yes. So,
But there were I don't even know the number of inquiries you got.
well, we may have underpriced that rent rate too because it's a smaller unit and the homeowner is interesting, and so I was nervous about the cohesiveness between the homeowner and the tenant. He's an older man, very particular about the things that he does. And so we wanted to make sure that we got a tenant in there that
It was a good fit.
really fit with Bob. And we had quite a few that all fit. We chose the first one that really worked, and it worked out. But yeah, I probably had about 50 messages within a few hours.
Oh, that's a sign that you definitely priced it at a
Just a little
highly competitive.
But we were excited to get it rented. It's all taken care of. We got a good tenant, and Bob's getting some income. So
Now that you guys have done 3 projects together,
Right.
Mhm.
what are some of the crazier things that have happened during the past couple of years of this?
The water pipe
Oh yeah,
at
that was an
Crosby.
interesting. So just after I had moved into our second, the single family home as we were renovating it, I woke up on a holiday weekend to a flooded basement. The water main had burst inside the house, but outside the meter. So there was no way to turn off water. You have a 1-inch line just gushing water, and of course it's a holiday weekend. I called my plumbing contact. He's like, you got to get the city involved. And this was at the very beginning of the COVID shutdown. So it was it took some time, but kudos to the city, because once I did get a hold of someone, they had someone out there shut it off within about 10 minutes. They said, we're going to get a contractor. It was a lead line. So we'll get this replaced. It's on us, not you. I thought that was going to be weeks in the making. By 2:00 in the afternoon, they were done. It was patched. It was operating. So we got basically a free home improvement for a little bit of a chaotic morning.
These things always tend to happen on holidays, don't they?
Right. Yeah. So other than that, no, we've had, no, that's not true. On this last apartment we did, as we got into it, we found out that a family of raccoons had been living kind of between the floors of the two units. And so we had a little bit of extra time and effort doing some remediation and some extermination work to keep out this family of raccoons that were loving to live in the space. So.
Did you have to deal with them directly, or did you hire someone to come in and?
No, we dealt with it.
Well, yeah, we dealt with it directly. I didn't have any contact with the raccoons, but
no,
they did leave quite the mess in the attic space.
What would you say to people who are looking to get started in investing in real estate and going the rehab model that you guys have done? I know that a lot of people like to do it on their own because they don't want to share the profit. They want to own that portfolio 100%. But you guys made the opposite choice. You decided, let's team up. Let's share in the experience and the profit. What would you say to someone getting started as to whether or not they should partner?
I would suggest it. I mean, it really helped. I would say, I'll go back to really that first project. Those were long days, and I would lose my energy throughout the day. And so when Katie would show up in the evening, then it's like, it's refreshed. We're going to start on something new. It kept me always thinking through, like, I got to make sure I plan what we're going to be working on. So I felt responsible to make sure that we're being productive when we were on site. But just the motivation. She was having a bad day, and maybe when I was having a good day, or vice versa. So just to keep us going, because it had to get done. It was like there was no option. We started, we had to go. So, and then I would say, so that from the partnership, and then the partnering with investors, honestly, made it feasible for us. But I also liked the idea of, I chose people that are close acquaintances, and to share in that with them. I'm okay with that.
Katie, what would you say?
For people getting into the renovation and flipping or whatnot, I would say that it's really scary, but you just got to jump in. There's a lot of planning. There's a lot of, doubting that you could do. But once you get things rolling and you get the right contacts and you and find people to ask questions to, because, we joined RPOA for that reason, to find people that we could ask, if we had any issues or what kind of contacts, if we needed anything. So it was just all a learning experience. And it's been very fruitful. So.
I'm really glad you made an organic plug there for the RPOA, Property Owners Association. That was helpful to plug into what they had to offer.
I think, yeah. So actually going to the conference the first year, it was in that winter time when it was really tough going for us. Just meeting some people that were doing this and finding out, what I'm going through is not unique. There's a lot of people out there doing this, and they were impressed by what we were doing. So I'm like, wow, if you're impressed, I guess maybe we're on the right track here. So it was it was just some good networking for sure.
That's great to hear. And Mark, I meant to ask you about bringing in financial partners and investors. How did you structure that? Because you needed a certain amount of money. You and Katie were doing all the work. You would put up the money to acquire the property. So when you bring an investor in, how do you structure that?
So 2 agreements is a promissory note, basically, that it's a promise to be paid back. It's basically an interest-free loan, and you'll be paid back in shares of an LLC upon completion. So there's a period of time during construction that's outlined for them that they'll receive no return on their money. But I give them a guaranteed date. And so even if construction isn't complete, they'll start getting their percentage. It may have to be backdated until we finish, but to figure out what their percentage is going to be once we know total cost. But I make sure that they're going to get paid for that. So they're not just committed indefinitely.
And how do you figure out that percentage? I mean, obviously you don't want it to be too high because you and Katie need to get paid as well.
Basically, it's really based on the total amount of investment. So if we just rough numbers, if we buy a $100,000 house and we put in $40,000 of investment to renovate it, and they did 20 of that, then they're going to have 20% of 140,000 or 20,000 over 140. So whatever that percentage is. So
they're taking an equity share and getting paid based on that.
Yeah.
Mark, if someone wanted to get a hold of you, how would they do so?
Email is WSB Properties LLC at gmail.com. And phone number is area code 616-293-8648. Happy to talk to folks that are interested, want to know maybe about what we've done, or maybe are interested in somehow seeing if there's a way to partner with us on future projects.
And Katie, if same question, if someone wanted to get a hold of you, how would they do so?
We use the same email address, and then my phone number is 616-889-9217. And also I work at Bradley Company, so if anyone needs me, they can call Bradley.
Grand Rapids Bradley Company office.
Yes.
And then as we wrap it up here, I'd love to just hear any advice that each of you have for investors out there.
Having residual rental income is pretty awesome. So, and it doesn't happen until you get started and finish a project. So, and quite honestly, the market may be tough to find things right now, but there are still deals out there. So it just takes time to look. I still think housing prices are fair if you can find them. So if you want to get in, it's not as overwhelming as I guess I thought it was going to be from the beginning.
I would say find as many residential realtor contacts as you can and tell them you're looking for a project, and tell everyone you're looking for a project, and I'm sure someone will come up with something. That's how we've found quite a few of them, or just looking on the MLS, but it's helpful when you have other people looking for you too.
And what exactly are you looking for your next project?
Anything from single family up to a 4-unit would be awesome. I mean, I'd love to do another duplex or greater, but if we find the right single family, those are good too. One that, it's just, we look for a solid project that we can add value to. That's the other thing is we made a conscious decision at the beginning to, we don't do it as cheaply as possible. We try to build a very quality product so we know we can attract a different type of renter that ideally will also care for the place as much as we did in putting it together.
Well, Mark and Katie, thanks so much for having this conversation with us. It's been fun learning about your how you guys teamed up together and why you teamed up, and just that progression from that first 2-unit to the single family, and then the arrangement you worked out with the neighbor to work on their 2-unit as well. I really appreciate you sharing the ups and downs and some of the problems you encountered and challenges you overcame. Thank you for having this conversation with us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
I want to thank everybody for listening to this episode. I'm your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group, and you can find out more about me by going to higinvestor.com. That's higinvestor.com. And you can also ask questions and join us on Facebook by going to RPOA, Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast. This episode was sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com.
And RCB and Associates, helping real estate investors and small business owners navigate the complex world of health insurance and Medicare benefits at rcbassociatesllc.com.
You've been listening to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association. You can find out more at rpoaonline.org. If you enjoyed this podcast, please go to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and review.